Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Kristie. I will be digging deep with our two special guests this morning, back by popular demand, Pastors Harrison and Kristie. Can we give them a round of applause? I guess sharing mics. Okay, so before we dive into it, does this mic work now? Nope. Okay. Hello? Okay, yes, for technical difficulties. Always fun. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Ready to dive deep?
I'm ready.
Yeah? Okay, we're going to ask everyone's burning questions this morning. So,
I'm excited.
You're excited?
I'm a big fan of Pastor Harrison, so it's a privilege to be up here with him.
Thank you.
You're supposed to reciprocate that.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
Okay, awesome. So for those of us who are new in the audience, could you let us know how long have you guys been together?
Mm-hmm. Great question.
So we've been together, we've been dating 9 years, married for 4, you're going to be 5 this summer, and we've got 2 kids,
Yep.
twins, so we had 2 at once, because why waste time? Come on, somebody.
Yes. Just get it out of the way.
Just get it out there.
Okay, well, can we give them a round of applause? So 9 years dating,
Yeah.
5 years married. That is awesome. So you guys probably have a lot of wisdom for us just to share. Okay, awesome. So we're going to dive into it. So you guys have been together for a while. Mm-hmm. So there are probably people in the audience right now who might be single, thinking to get into a relationship, might be in a relationship, thinking to get engaged, get married.
Yeah.
What is the most important thing for people to know when entering into a relationship?
I'll go?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a loaded question, because I feel like that question could take up our entire time. But I think if I was to narrow it down to one thing, I would say that it won't work without God.
Yeah.
Now, that's kind of like a simple statement just put out there, and I don't know, maybe some people are thinking like, give me something practical or give me like some strategies. The thing is, like, I could tell people, okay, maybe we should learn to cook or clean more, or maybe we need to learn how to communicate, or maybe we need to be motivated in our individual lives, but those things are superficial. So if you don't have God in your relationship, those things are useless. Yep. And so I think a lot of times, like, we as people, we get into relationships, or we want to enter a relationship thinking that that's what's going to make us complete, or that's what's going to make me like grow. Like, when I meet somebody, then I'm going to start doing things. But the thing is, like, God never created marriage or relationships to compete with himself. He created them to point them to himself.
That's good.
They were created so that we, as people in relationship, could be pointed further towards God. And so I think, like, the biggest thing is just realizing that God is the major theme, marriage is a minor theme. So if we view everything in the context of relationships and marriage is a minor theme, everything pointing back to God, like, that's the biggest and most useful thing that we'll be able to have within relationships. Because the thing is, like, Harrison's amazing.
Yeah.
He is.
I am.
No humility there. Cool.
But sometimes he doesn't love me the way that I want to be loved, or compliment me when I think I should be complimented, or say the words that, like, I think he should say. But the thing is, like, he didn't die for me and he didn't save me. So if I didn't have Jesus, if I didn't have God in our marriage, if I wasn't at peace with my relationship with God, and if I didn't feel like fully fulfilled, fully complete in God with purpose and value, I would never be able to find peace in my relationship with God. I would continually feel hurt and resentment and bitterness and comparison. But because of God, I find peace in my marriage.
Wow.
And I think, I'll just wrap it up with one last thought for my answer. I think that's one of the most ironic things about our view on marriage today, is the view that kind of like this new contemporary way tells us, defines marriage, that like we have to find our perfect match, or that we need to find somebody that completes us, that person that's going to make us happy. But like, in our culture, we see this view as liberating and freeing, but it's it's actually the most oppressive view to have in marriage, because you're putting unrealistic expectations on your marriage, and you're putting your deepest desires on somebody that was never meant to bear them. And so just like realizing God is the major theme, my relationship is the minor theme.
Yeah. Take notes. If anybody has a notebook, that is something to jot down for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so question, what should people know before they get into a relationship? One thing I just say is you rarely have to sell yourself on a good idea or a good decision.
Yeah, it's true.
You rarely have to sell yourself on a good decision. So if you are dating or you're looking to date, and the person that you're interested in, if you constantly and continually are trying to convince yourself of why or how or why I should be in this relationship, we know this to be true. All of us have people in our lives, whether it's our friends, family, when we see them in bad relationships, we know right away, right? We're like, oh my gosh, what an idiot. Like, why is that like, why are they together? But the ultimate irony of life is that we can see everyone else's mistakes, but we can't see our own. And so what I would say is understand, if you feel like you are constantly and continually trying to convince yourself of the decision, it's probably not a good decision. And so what we said a few weeks ago was that one of the ways that you know that you're really just kind of grasping at straws is when you lower the bar. Right? And so we said one of the dumbest things people can say is, like, well, why are you together? Well, he treats me so well. Or she treats me so good. We said that's the lowest level of commitment. What do you mean they treat you well? But the reason that we do that, because we're trying to convince other people, right? We've lowered the bar, and so we're trying to convince other people to come down there with us. And so I just say, and this is really from Andy Stanley, and I love Andy Stanley. He says, you rarely have to sell yourself in a good decision. So how do you know you're making a bad decision? He says, ask a clarifying question. Am I being honest with myself, really? Am I being honest with, because the truth is, we can lie to other people all day. And the ironic thing is, they know you're lying, right? We know when someone doesn't believe it themselves. But the reason that we do this is because we have first lied to ourselves.
That's good.
So ask yourself, am I being honest with myself, really? And so what Andy Stanley says is one of the ways that you can know that you're lying to yourself is that if you use logic to defend an emotional decision.
Yeah, that's good.
You're using logic to defend an emotional decision. So I'll give you guys a case example of what that might look like. So Kristie and I, we moved to St. Albert. Thank you, so glad to be here.
Welcome to St. Albert.
And so here's some advice really quickly. This is, if you're moving, make sure that you can afford to move, that you have the money. So for us, we moved from a duplex to a house, and we did calculations, we could afford it. Just, that's a preface. Now let's imagine that we couldn't afford it, right? Super emotional, just I want to move, I want a house, and we decided to move. And so what we do now, because we're living in the reality of like, this is a terrible decision, is that in order to not be constantly and continually embarrassed, we'll begin to use logic to defend emotional decisions. So I'd say something like, yeah, we love St. Albert. I live 5 minutes from the church. Like, you wouldn't believe the amount of money I save on gas. Like, that's true, logically, but the bigger truth is that like your mortgage, taxes is way more than the money that you would spend. But what you're doing is that you're using logic to defend an emotional decision. And so I need us to understand this, because so many of us, maybe you're doing it right now in a relationship, you're using logic to defend the emotional decision. And so what that looks like is literally like, we've been together for 2 weeks, we decided to move in together, but you wouldn't believe the amount of money we're saving on rent. Right? So I'm using logic to defend my emotional decision. A worse one, I said it first, never so I'll say it again, but it's like, well, yeah, my partner is abusive, maybe even beats me, but he's a paramedic, so he takes care of me afterwards.
This died. So how do you know when you're compromising? Like, because like people say relationships are full of compromises, but how do you know you're compromising, and how do you know when you're lowering your standard?
Yeah, I think, and this is a big one that kind of Kristie talked about, it's just really like what if God is the main thing, right, and that's kind of our thing, let's keep God the main thing. If we're going with people that are taking us away from the main thing, and it's like we're lowering. So example, like, yeah, he's not a Christian, but he's spiritual. Yeah. He's not a Christian, but you should see the crystals in his house. Like, so what we do is we're just using logic to defend. And so what I would say is really to have that bar, right? You need to have a personal bar that you set, because if you don't know what it is, then you won't even know if you're compromising. Yeah. And so that's really important and clarifying to do before you get into a relationship. But even if you're in a relationship, I think you need to begin to have some non-negotiables.
Exactly. Set the tone. Yeah. Set the tone in every aspect of your life so that there's no surprises. Like, surprises are good sometimes, but surprises aren't good when you completely change the person that you are and you expect that of the other person. So if you're not being the person that you want to attract, number one, you're probably not going to attract them in the first place. But number two, you can't expect to be dating them, get into a relationship, and then change all of their ways because you were hiding or you weren't doing something of your tone. So before you get into a relationship, set the tone of your life so that somebody coming in knows, hey, these are non-negotiables. Like, these are their foundation. Yeah.
That's so good. So setting the tone, setting that standard before you even dive into a relationship.
Yeah. And I would say just that, and why it's so important before marriage, is that marriage doesn't make it go away, it just exposes it, right? And so a lot of times it's like we can sell. I'm gonna sell my friends, sell my family, sell myself of why I should be with this person. But what happens once you get married, the truth is no one wants to be a salesman forever. Yeah. No one wants to sell themselves forever. Yeah. And the most ironic thing is that people get divorced and they think the reason they're getting divorced or breaking up is because of new issues. Yeah. No, 99% of the times it's issues that we chose to ignore at the start, right? It's like you had to beg that person to get married, and now you're really weirded out when they have commitment issues when you're married. Yeah. It's just been exposed, right? He was a cheater before you got married. She was a cheater after you. Like, it's what happens is that you just have compromised. So I won't go off.
Go off. So Kristie, from your perspective, like, what does it take to have a good relationship? Like, what is a relationship?
I think the number one key is commitment. When you enter into a relationship, you enter into knowing that you're going to commit. And I say that because I think our generation lacks in the commitment. What's the word? The commitment
wavelength
thing. Yeah. So like, our generation is good at committing like 1% to 100 different things, but it's not very good at committing 100% to one thing. And the thing about
say that again.
We're not good at committing 100% to one thing. Our generation is very good at just committing 1% to 100 things. And the thing with love or great love is only known with great commitment. And so I think a lot of times we just think like, oh, I fell in love, or yeah, we're just in love. But the thing is, if you fall in love, you can fall out of love. Yeah. But when you make a commitment, it's literally saying like, the love I have for you right now is the lowest level I'm gonna have, because great love is practiced, it's learned, it's aspired to be great love. Like, great love is literally putting your partner's ultimate good before you. Like, their good is before yours. So yeah, I would say commitment. I was listening to a podcast, and it was just talking on the context of how we're good at committing to a whole bunch of different things. And it said that a lot of times we think we've traveled a long journey because we've went 1,000 miles, but all we've traveled is 1 mile 1,000 times. But our heart's greatest desire is to travel 1,000 miles with one person. Wow. And so it's just like that commitment. If you're wanting to enter into a relationship, because the thing is, God doesn't command us to get married. Yeah. Like, it's not a command to get married. And so if we make the choice to get married, we make the choice to commit to that other person. Yeah.
Good. I realized in the process of like all the technical difficulties, we did not acknowledge Church Online. So Church Online, we are so happy you guys joined us.
Hello. Yeah.
And yeah, just keep watching. Okay, so you guys have been together for a while. So I'm assuming you've had fights.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had conflict.
Conflict. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a difference in the term that you've used.
Come on.
Why?
Because fighting means that one of us wins and one of us loses. And fighting means that we're opponents and not teammates.
Yeah.
So conflict, there's going to be conflict. There is conflict because we are individual people with individual likes and dislikes, and we disagree on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But fighting, we don't fight. We have conflict.
And we're pretty intentional with that because like culture kind of just loves to talk about like the word fighting.
Yeah.
Like, have a good fight it out in your marriage, right?
Yeah.
Duke it out, lock the doors, just fight it out.
Just have it all out.
But like what Kristie said is if we're on the same team, it's actually illogical to be fighting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And the example that I gave was one time when I was in college, my brother and I played hockey together on the same team. And whatever happened, emotions ran high with him. And he punched me in the face in the midst of a game. And so what happened afterwards is that like our friends, they made fun of us a lot.
Yeah.
And the one thing they said over and over again was like, they just couldn't believe, like, how were you guys fighting? You're on the same team.
Yeah.
But listen, we know how illogical that sounds in sports.
Yeah.
But we make it commonplace in marriage.
Yeah,
Fight
it's
it
true.
out. So we say conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so conflict. How do you deal with conflict?
Yeah. I'll go. I think the best way to deal with conflict is acknowledging that conflict's inevitable. Because if we treat every argument or disagreement as just something like this big thing that came out of nowhere, then we're gonna react to it as a big thing that came out of nowhere. But if we're like, hey, like we're gonna have conflict in our marriage, we're gonna have conflict in our friendships, we're gonna have conflict in life, just knowing it's inevitable means, hey, it's coming, and so I better get ready to be able to address it. And I'm gonna address it head on. And so I think like for me, you do two things in conflict. You reflect on the root of where your emotions come from, and then you forgive. So you deal and then you heal. Because I think with a lot of us, what happens is there's these conflict in our lives, these emotions, this hurt, this pain that comes up within conflict. And what we do is we try to ignore it or push it away or suppress it. And it becomes unresolved pain and hurt, but unresolved doesn't stay unresolved forever. So what happens in conflict is you have a current conflict, but it doesn't remain current because the emotions stem back to this past hurt and past trauma in your life. And what happens even more is we have this hurt that stays unaddressed, and then it stews in our lives, and it actually becomes hate. This hurt becomes hate in our lives, and that's what the majority of conflict, that's why the majority of conflicts end in like almost an out of proportion reaction. Because for the person that's hurt, their reaction seems warranted because they've created this script in their minds from who knows, like either whether a day ago or like 20 years ago of the hurt that hurt them so long ago.
Yeah.
And then this like blow up comes, and if the partner doesn't know that there's this unresolved pain, it's almost directed at them.
So in a practical situation, how do you deal? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that was so good. I think that, like, so number one, practically speaking, simplest thing, when it comes to conflict, never trust your heart.
Yeah.
And when I say heart, it's your emotions.
Yeah.
Never trust your heart. Never trust your emotions. Why? Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked.
Yeah.
Who can know it? Who can know it? So literally what Kristie is saying is because of all of the things that we have gone through, it actually shifts our hearts and shifts our emotions.
Yeah.
And so what that means is we can actually begin to filter our lives and our reality through a different lens that is actually real.
Yeah, it's good.
And so one thing, we listened to an interview with Lisa Turkos, and she wrote a book about forgiveness. And one thing that's really helped us, she said when it comes to conflict, and you guys, I'm so glad the two of you have your notebooks out. The rest of you, encourage you guys to write this down.
Even in your phones.
Yeah, on your phones, for sure. She said, in conflict, understand this. If I'm hysterical, it's historical.
Yeah.
Break that down a little.
If I'm hysterical, it's historical. What she's saying is if the situation in front of me is bringing out a response that is greater than what is warranted, that means that I am reacting not necessarily to the situation that is in front of me, but I'm filtering it through my past hurt and my past trauma. And so literally our history plays out a script in our head over and over again. And so we don't actually view our reality necessarily through what's happening, but through the script that we've told ourselves over and over and over again. And so like literally it's those situations in relationship or friendship, you've all been there, where it feels like, man, someone is going off and you're like, what a crazy psycho.
Calm down.
Like this did not,
Chill.
just chill out. Like this does not warrant the reaction. What she's saying is chances are there's something historical there. There's something that's deeper, right?
So you guys shared a little story this morning at our 9:30 service just to show us what that looks like in a real life situation.
Practically
Speaking. Okay, so what happened for us, and thankfully we had just listened to this podcast separately, but we both listened to it. And so I went into the kitchen, and if you guys don't know, I said at the start, I guess, we have 2 babies, a year and a half. So Kristie was in the kitchen feeding the babies, and our babies are the healthiest babies that have ever lived. They eat avocados and fruits and other such things. Just think of like a diet of a rabbit. That's
Okay.
so very healthy. And so Kristie was feeding them all this food, and our girls, and babies, if you guys have seen them eat, they're messy, right? And so they're, running amok, making a mess, throwing things on the ground, and like, when the avocado dries, like what that does to the ground, right? And so I went into the kitchen, just, doing my thing, and I just said innocently, I was like, hey, Crest, just make sure like we clean that up, like fast.
How dare he?
I said, we got to make sure that we clean it up. And so it was a small thing, at least I thought that I said. And then Kristie kind of got defensive, emotional, kind of, I thought, out of proportion to what I had just said. And so thankfully, we had just listened to this message. And so she said, one of the things that you can do is if you know that if someone's hysterical, it's historical, try to begin to see things through their lens. So she said, ask a clarifying question. And the question that I asked her was, Kristie, what did you hear me say? What did you hear me say? And so then she...
What did you hear him say, Kristie?
I mean, I'm sure I answered with like, whatever, Harrison. But as we reflected on it and addressed it head on in the moment, I realized that his question stemmed back to me feeling like I was not able to do enough pretty much since the girls were born. When they came into our lives, a lot of things shifted. And a lot of what I was able to do on a bigger scale had to kind of scale down. And so in regards to this, I was already feeling like I wasn't doing my role as well as I should have been. And so his question brought back the script that I had formed in my mind of, I guess, just insufficiency within our roles in marriage.
I'm not doing enough as a wife.
Exactly. And so, me not doing enough stemmed, I guess then his question just brought up those heated emotions, and it was an out of proportion reaction. So it wasn't warranted.
You had that conversation, you asked that clarifying question. How do you move forward from that?
Yeah, so for me, and this is really good, I think, for all of us, is because, like, the truth is, a lot of times we just want to be understood instead of seeking to understand. Right? And so when Kristie said that she'd been feeling all of these insufficiencies, like, I didn't know that, right? And so all of a sudden, like, because it can turn into a big fight, right? And I can be like, what did you say to me, woman? Right? But when our walls go down when we understand.
Vulnerability.
Because as soon as she said that, all of a sudden, like, my heart's like, no, Chris, like, I actually, like, I think you're the best mom ever, and I think that you go above and beyond. I think everyone that knows you thinks that, and I think you're the greatest of all time, actually.
Yes.
And
yes.
so,
say that one again.
Yeah. And so what happens, though, is that if I didn't seek to understand the history behind the hysteria, then it would have just created conflict. And so, like, moving forward, and this is for all of us, I would encourage you, because a lot of times when we're offended, we just don't want them to understand. We don't want to understand them. We want people to understand us and how they made us feel. So I think a lot of times it can just, and for us moving forward, it's just understanding if there's something more, let's get down to the root of it. And like Kristie said, that takes vulnerability. That takes openness. At times it can be embarrassing even, right? It's embarrassing if like it's something really stupid that made you feel how you feel, but the truth is it doesn't matter how stupid it is. What matters is your feelings. And so sometimes I need to actually be embarrassed in order to experience freedom on the other side. So was that kind of practical?
Yeah, that was good. Did everybody get that? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Okay. So you said something about not trusting your heart. So what do you trust?
Good question.
That's really good. Let me answer by this, and let me tell you why we don't trust our hearts. The truth is, every single one of us walks around with brokenness. And what happens is we buy the lie that says time heals all wounds. That's a lie.
It's a lie, yeah.
If you guys don't know this, you don't watch the sermons enough, but I broke my tooth like a long time ago in the summertime. You can go watch church online. I'll tell you the whole story. But I broke my tooth and like literally broke my tooth in half in the back. And so I had to get my tooth fixed. And after I fixed it, it still hurt. And so I went to the dentist and I was like, yo, my tooth still hurts. And he's like, yeah, you broke it. He's like, it's going to hurt for a long time. And I'm like, okay, that sucks. And so basically what I began to do is I just began to chew on one side of my mouth, like all the time. And so the longer that I chew on one side of my mouth, the more I begin to believe that I'm actually healed. Why? Because I don't feel pain. But the truth is, I'm not actually healed. I've just learned to chew a different way. And so what happens, the one day when by accident I have a big bite of honey bunches of oats and that granola gets on the other side of my mouth, I experience great pain. And it seems like disproportionate to what happened, but the truth is, it's because I thought that I healed, but I had actually just learned to chew a different way. And so what happens for so many of us is we think I'm healed, but you just began to live a different way. And so what happens when something pricks it, then it's like, oh wow, there it is. And so the reason, going back to your question, why I don't trust my heart is because I know that my heart is deceitful, right? And so what that means is I need to lean on something higher for truth. Do you want to?
Yeah, no, it's good. I was just going to say, just in regards to that, like, a lot of times in conflict, not even in conflict, in general, like hate is almost natural. It's almost more natural than love or forgiveness. But within conflict, step one, we go back to the root of it. We forgive, because forgiveness is expensive. I have this one written down. It's good. If you guys have a notebook, write this down. Forgiveness is expensive, but bitterness is incalculable.
Come on.
So if you live, like Harrison was saying, you suppress it, you put it under the rug, it's going to come up at some point. And so I think in conflict, going back to what you were saying, like a lot of times as people, we do what we've always done. And so in conflict, we treat our trends as truth. Meaning, if we've always raised our voice in conflict, or we've always used the words divorce and hate, or we've always walked away in conflict, then we say, hey, like, this is my trend, and that's why it's justified, because I've always done it. But within conflict, we need to say, hey, if God is the major theme and marriage is a minor theme, my spouse, my friend, whatever it is, they're human. And we're going to make mistakes no matter what. And so once we've addressed it, then we just say, hey, in this conflict, how do we come out of it stronger? How do we come out of it showing each other God and forgiveness and great and selfless love? Like, how are we treating this conflict? Because sometimes when you're in it, you get heated. And so just like we were saying, before you enter a relationship, you should set your foundation. Like before you enter a conflict, you should have boundary lines within it. Like you should know where you can and can't go within your relationship. Like for me, like Harrison's pretty strategic, and I lead by emotion. And so like he knows that like I get emotional pretty fast, or I get my feelings hurt fast. And so like that vulnerability though, even though it's not easy to talk about those things, like those are the things that protect you within your relationship so you don't say words that you can never get back.
Did you want to add anything?
I feel like we kind of skimmed over your question a little bit, surfacely. What was the question you asked again? How do I know?
Like, if you
That's
can't
not
trust
your
your
heart.
heart, what do you trust?
Right, that was the question. That's really good.
You answered it like,
Yeah, kind of around
Kind
it.
of-
And I think the biggest thing, and Kristie hit on it too, is just what is truth, right? If my heart isn't truth, what is truth? And to be honest, Jesus is truth, right? And so I view conflict through the lens of Jesus, right? And I view conflict through his love. And so I love 1 Corinthians 13, verse 6. It says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So what's my hope? What's my
Truth.
What's my truth? My truth is that if I am not living in this kind of love, right? So in conflict, if I love to like get my spouse, like I got her this time, like I'm not living like Jesus, right? If I'm not protecting her, if I'm not trusting her, if I'm not, to what Kristie said, if I'm passing lines, like I know I'm leading from emotion, I'm leading from my heart, and my heart is deceitful. So to answer the question bluntly, Jesus is my barometer for what I trust. I don't trust my heart, I trust Jesus.
that's so good. So you talked a little bit about boundaries. Is that the same for everyone in conflict, or is that something that you figure out together as a couple?
Me? I think there is a ground that is for everybody in regards to not speaking, if you're in a marriage, not speaking about divorce. There's certain words, hate, those things should not be said. There's certain boundaries in regards to, the tone of your voice or leaving a conversation. Like those things should be pretty like neutral ground for every relationship, but there are definitely individual bounds that people within a relationship need to communicate to each other, because we're all hurt different ways.
Yeah, I mean, and I just like, it's kind of superficial in a sense, but don't, like in terms of what you say to someone, don't say something about them that will never change. So if like you're in a heated conflict and you insult someone physically, like I hate your nose, like whatever, like just that's an example.
Heated.
Like it's not like that's not going to change.
Yeah.
So you can say like I forgive you, right? But the nose is still there forever, right? And so it's like that's a surface example, but I could go to any parts of you. But like don't insult something that cannot change, right? Like you can say like I didn't like the way that you spoke to me. But like when you start insulting permanent things, that doesn't lead temporary damage. That leads permanent. That leaves permanent damage.
I think Matthew 5:41, it goes off of yours. It says, a couple days, or if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2. Meaning, if you have boundaries, don't allow that to be your base. Like, go above and beyond. Don't live in our relationships in minimums. Like, so many times we're like, what is the least I can do? Or like, can I make a joke in this conflict and get away with it? Or like, can we just sleep on it and maybe forget about it? Like no,
I can diss their hair because that can change. I'm just gonna get close to the boundary.
like
Just close, but not over it.
Like go above and beyond in every aspect of the relationships that you're in your life.
And that's every relationship.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's not just romantic.
No.
Right? If you have friends and you love to get your friend, like I love to catch that idiot. Like check your heart.
Yeah, you're not a friend.
Check your heart. So
That's so good. So I think going back to, we've talked a lot about marriage and romantic relationships, and throughout the series you've been saying, relationships, marriage, like that is not your ultimate goal. You said earlier, God is the major theme and relationships are the minor theme. So we talked a little bit about mission and purpose.
Yeah.
So why is that so important?
Yeah. Mission is the utmost important thing in your life. Like if your eyes aren't set on something greater than yourselves, being God, being your mission, you're going to be distracted by every little thing around you. And so mission is just what says like, hey, where am I going? And it tune points your life. It focuses all of your relationships. Like if you have mission, if you see that your mission is God and you want to make disciples, that's how you see your community, your workplace, your friendships, your relationships, your marriage, whatever it is. Mission just says like, hey, my eyes are set on something greater than myself.
Yeah.
And that's what just like focuses me in.
I think because we talked about, the major and the minor. I always forget. What's he said?
God is major.
God is the major theme.
Yeah.
Always.
Always.
God is the major, relationships are the minor.
Yeah.
And so I think this is really important to have in life as well. In life and relationships, I think we need a major mission.
Yeah.
And we need a minor mission.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things that messes so many of us up is that we make our minor missions the major missions.
Yeah.
So to put it simply, I think that your major mission should revolve around God in some way.
Okay.
For us and our family, our mission is so simple. It's just love people, make disciples.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do. As we raise our kids, that's the mission of our family.
Yeah.
Right? That is the major mission of our life.
Yeah.
What happens is that life is filled with minor missions. You should have minor missions, right? I want to have the best paying job, whatever. I want to be a dentist. I want to be this or I want to be that. But the truth is the minor missions in your life can never overtake the major mission.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think the major mission needs to in some way revolve around God.
Yeah.
Right? I think Jesus gives you many fancy ways to make your own mission statement. Right? He says, therefore, go and make disciples.
Yeah.
There's a mission statement. He says the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. There's a mission statement. Jesus says love people. There's a mission statement. So I think you need to have a mission in your marriage, a mission in your life that revolves around people and revolves around God. Because the truth is if you don't, the minor will always become the major.
Yeah.
Right? And we live in a culture that is obsessed with the minor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right? Everyone in society wants to be viral.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like when we had our babies, you wouldn't believe everyone's like, yo, get them on TikTok. Trust me, you'll never work a day again once the girls are on TikTok. Right? And it's and so there's this society when it comes to mission. It's ironic. The mission for so many people, I said it in first service, so many Gen Z, but it's not even just Gen Z. It's millennials, Gen X, whatever, baby boomers. If you're a baby boomer and you have a TikTok mission, you grow up. Love you all. But the point is, so many of us have missions where it's I want to be known by people that don't actually know me.
Yeah.
I heard someone say this, and I thought it was so good, and I've taken it from my life. I want to be respected most by those who know me best.
Yeah.
I want to be respected most by those who know me best. Because if people behind a camera, if people that I've never met respect me, that doesn't really matter. Right? And so I think that personal mission is so important in that regard.
So how do you discover what your mission/purpose is?
Yeah. I think you just ask yourself, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Because if your mission is to have a nice car or to make money or to have a marriage or a family or an open concept house, you've set the mission very low. You've set the mission of your life very low. Are those awesome outcomes? Absolutely. But if your mission isn't above yourself, something greater, being God, then it's going to seep into every aspect of our lives. So, if we find ourselves in relationships, friendships, whatever it is in our lives, seeing other people, comparing them to yourself, oh, they're better or worse than us, they're richer or poorer, they have this, I don't have this, then our mission isn't big enough.
Yeah.
And so I think to go back to the question, which was how do you set your mission?
Yeah, how do you find
You just say, what is going to direct every single step I take in life?
And I think to put it more bluntly, it needs to revolve around people and it needs to revolve around Jesus.
Yeah.
If you don't have a mission that takes you outside of yourself, then you'll always be chasing.
Yeah.
Right? And so some people think, well, when I have my 14th property, that's when I'll be that's when I'll be content. Or when I make my first million. Or for some people, it's like my next spouse.
Yeah.
The next one will make me really happy. And what I always say, listen, if you feel discontent in your marriage, you don't need a new spouse. You need a new mission.
Yeah.
Because you've set the bar too low, like
Yeah.
Kristie said. And so we live in this place that tells us to chase, paper chase. But and there's nothing, listen, there's nothing wrong. There is something wrong with having 30 spouses, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful, to have those minor missions. If you want to blow up, all the power to you. That's your mission in life. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But those minor things cannot take over the major things.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I would just say to people, revolve it in some way around God.
Yeah, we'll never have peace in the minor things
Yeah.
if we don't have a mission of the bigger, if we don't have peace in our bigger theme.
And the beauty of Jesus, he says, seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be given.
Yeah.
Right? And so what that means, if I seek him first, if he's major, guess what? Maybe I'll actually get some of the minors.
Yeah.
And every minor that you don't get, God didn't want you to have it, so don't trip out.
Yeah.
You're good, because he says everything else you need will be given too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about finding your mission as a couple. What do you feel your mission is as a couple, and how does that seep into the everyday life aspects of your life?
Yeah, so our mission as a couple, as a married couple, is to love God and to make disciples or love people. And so I think it seeps into every relationship in the greater theme of giving us peace, just knowing that we weren't joined together for companionship or just to meet each other's needs. Like, we were joined together for something greater. And so I have peace, he has peace, knowing that our mission is so much greater. Because the thing is, like, if we didn't have a mission in our marriage, I would never have peace in our marriage. I would always be annoyed by his wisdom and like resentful that he's a good preacher and bitter that he has to spend time at the church away from me with other people. Like, there would just be these emotions. But because our eyes are set on something bigger, because we have a mission in our marriage, we know that God and people are what our entire lives are meant to be.
That's so good. And I think, the truth is, like, I remember one of the first times I heard something, and I never understood it. It was talking about jealousy within a marriage or jealousy within a relationship. And I thought it was so weird because, like, I've never been jealous of Kristie, and to my knowledge, she's never been jealous of me. And so it was foreign, but to what Kristie's point, I think the reason that jealousy could happen within a relationship is because maybe one person has a mission and the other doesn't. And so I always say to people, like, if you're together, if you're dating or you're single or you're trying to find that person, like, super simple question: does this person make me better? Right? Does this person help me fulfill the mission of my life? Because the truth is, like, you can try to bring that person up forever. Well, I'm going to get them to my level. Well, they'll be a Christian one day. Like, I'll get them out the club. I'll get them there one day. But what happens is that if they don't get there, the truth is that person might just end up resenting you. Right? Or vice versa, where you might end up resenting that person because you're on different wavelengths. And so to Kristie's thing, we're not jealous because we're not competing, but we're complementing each other. And so for us, we want to love people. And so when Kristie, and she's amazing at it, and a lot of you ladies know, like, she's going for walks with you guys and meeting with you guys and loving you guys. And so for me, I don't get jealous. I'm like, I need to love people better now too. I got to get on my game now too, right? And so the mission, when we have it together, like, and it brings us somewhere, we complement each other and we don't compete with each other. So, so for us, it revolves around Jesus. Two are better than one.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. So, like, to wrap up the series, what is maybe 1, 2, 3 takeaways that you want people to leave with?
Me?
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway is going back to kind of what we were talking at the beginning. Like, we can learn how to be better people. We can learn how to love other people better. But without God, it's not going to work. We're not going to thrive in our lives, we're not going to thrive in our relationships. So it literally all comes back to God. It all comes back to God. So we can work our entire lives on strategic things that make us better, but until we realize that God died for us and saved for us because we are sinful human beings, like, we'll never be able to treat somebody else the way that God calls us to treat them. And so just saying, like, hey, like, back to the beginning, God is the major theme. Everything else is minor.
Yeah, and I love Ecclesiastes chapter 4. It says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. And then he continues, verse 12. He says, though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. But he says, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And so 2 is good, and 3 is not talking about like 3 people. It's like that's God is the third, right? And so what we kind of said and what we've said in this series is that relationships aren't an end of themselves. Right? You don't need to be in a relationship. And so when we can say 2 is better than 1, it's maybe you're the one and then God's the other. Or if you're in a relationship, 2, but then it says 3 is even better, right? So the point is, God is the major thing for every aspect of my life. Whether I'm single, whether I'm dating, whether I'm in a relationship, it all points back to God, and it all points back to purpose. And so the reason we do these series as a church, do we want you to have better relationships? Absolutely. Right? I hope that for some of us, we have a brand new picture of relationships. I hope maybe some people get out of a toxic relationship. I hope some people in marriage, their marriage is better than ever. But at the end of the day, we want to lead people to Jesus. And we think that if you have a healthy relationship, whatever that is, right, you will be healthier altogether. If you can have a healthier marriage, it'll be better. If you have healthier friendships, it'll be, I need friends that can bring me to Jesus. I need friends that can pick me up when I'm down. And so kind of what we say, what we want to say is Romans chapter 10, verse 15, it says, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on the one that they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have never heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And so what we say is we want you to be healthy in whatever your relational status is. Why? Because when you're healthy, you can get back on mission and lead people to Jesus. That's what your heart desires. And I hope if anything you've seen in this series, what your heart desires is more Jesus, more mission, more leading people. And so how can they hear unless someone tells them?
Awesome. Well, can we just give Pastors Harrison and Kristie a round of applause? Thank you for being vulnerable, for being honest and transparent with us.
Hey, can we give it up for Kriege too?
Oh, thank you. So if you have missed any part of this series, we encourage you to check it out online on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, subscribe. For those of you who are on Church Online, you can easily click the links in the description. For those of you in the building, you might have to do a little bit of searching, but you'll find it on YouTube. We just want to thank you so much for joining us. This is the end of our series. We're going to start something new next week, so make sure you join us. And if you are new to Kingdom Church, if this is your first time, we encourage you to connect with us. We want to build a relationship with you. We want to make you part of this community. So we have connect cards in the back at the info center. Fill that out. Someone will get in touch with you because we already love you. We've been praying for you before you even walked through those front doors. So thank you for coming. We hope you'll join us again. And if you are interested in continuing to support this ministry, support the mission of our church, you can partner with us financially. There's many different ways to give. Every dollar that you pour into this place goes back to our community, goes back to us loving them, leading them to an authentic relationship with Christ. So we just want to thank you for your support, whether it's your time, your treasures, your talents. Thank you so much. So with that, we are wrapping up Relationship Reboot. Did you guys like it? Enjoy the series? Awesome. Okay, so we're just going to wrap it up with prayer, and then we'll see you guys next week. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, so much just for this opportunity to sit together and just learn more about relationships, learn more that you are the major theme and everything else is the minor theme, Lord. And if we keep our eyes fixated on you, everything will make more sense, Lord. And so I just pray for every single person in this room, the relationships, the friendships, the people that they come into contact with every day, whether it's in their home, in their workplace, even in the grocery store, Lord. I pray that we will show people who you are and lead them into an authentic relationship with you. We just want to thank you for all of the blessings, and I pray that we have a great week and that we just continue to find relationship with you in everything. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week, and Andrea's going to spin us out.